It's Monday. This is Toronto Sports Rush. That means a healthy dose of Pierre McGuire here on McGuire Monday. Pierre, we are into the middle of August right now, and it is pure speculation season. So we're going to hop right into that today. Now, this is an interesting query for you because a lot of people are talking about this, but you are someone who is intimately familiar with the Montreal Canadiens. There's some rumors that Patrik Laine will eventually find his home in Toronto. How would he fit with this team?
Patrik Laine would fit really well. I thought Montreal would probably look at not signing him, which they clearly have not. And I thought that potentially the Florida Panthers, especially with Brad Marchand's injury, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, because of the ability for this guy to score, especially in the power play, might be a really good hookup. I think there are probably some other teams that would be looking at it. But if you were to ask me the leading candidates, I'd say probably Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think he fits very well in Toronto.
And I think the point you just made there, Pierre, about the power play, it's just, man, we've been pressing this theme for weeks now, but it does seem like the Leafs have really geared so much of this offseason towards having not only one of the league's best PP1, but the depth for a very solid PP2. And if they were to get him, you would think there would be two absolutely stellar power play lines available to them at any time.
One of the things that's really important, and I did this back with Scotty Bowman in 2004 when we had the lockout and we had the nuclear winter of no hockey. We sat in his backyard in Sarasota, Florida, and we tried to come up with a scheme with the salary cap and what would be needed to win in a salary cap era. So what we talked about, Kyle, was this. You had to have two dominant centermen. Toronto has that in Austin Matthews and clearly with John Tavares. You need to have a power forward. The potential is there for them to have that in Matthew Nice. That's 3 of the 7. Then you need to have a specialist forward. I think Toronto has that maybe with Willie Nylander. Maybe they have that with Gavin McKenna. But I know for sure if they got Patrik Laine, that specialist forward, he would be the scorer on the power play. That could be Patrik Laine. You need to have an elite shutdown defenseman. I think they have that potentially in Chris Tanev as long as he stays healthy. And you need to have a real good puck moving defenseman. And I think they have that potentially in Darren Raddysh and maybe some other people coming along. And then you got to have supreme goaltending. And I think they had that with Bobrovsky. So if you look at the profile, if you put Patrik Laine on that profile, that fits and that gives you a legitimate chance to compete.
And I want to promise Patrick right now, should he actually show up in Toronto, I will pronounce his last name correctly. I was reading a story this morning about Patrick Kane, and I got Laine in my head, but it is in fact Laine. I said that. But let's transition into the produce part of the show here this morning. We got to talk about a couple of radishes. First of all, there's a rumor that the Leafs could be eyeing Taylor Raddysh from the New York Rangers right now, adding a brother dynamic potentially to this hockey team. How would you feel about that move?
Well, they had that a little bit with the Nylanders, right? And they did it really well. I thought Alex Nylander winning a Calder Cup in Toronto was really good. And obviously, Willie being there, I think is tremendous. And I think that's going to help Willie this year as well. Taylor Raddysh is an energy player. Taylor Raddysh is what he is. He's not going to be in your top 6. He's not going to be a guy that manufactures a lot of points. He's a guy that's going to do whatever the coach tells him. He's going to be a guy that can be probably clear waivers if they do sign him, and he can go down and play in the American Hockey League if he doesn't make your NHL roster. So the truth of the matter is, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to just continue to grow the organizational depth of the Leafs.
Yeah, and he's only 28 years old, and you could never be certain about how a move like that towards his brother, who is in fact an NHL superstar at this point, would affect his ability to grow as a player and grow into a bottom 6 role with this Toronto Maple Leaf team. But again, the age thing is really good because the Leafs have been attempting to trend this thing a little bit younger. Could they get younger? Absolutely. Every hockey team could use a little bit of that in their lives. So I wouldn't hate the move at all, and he would not be an expensive pickup. But let's talk about his brother, Darren, the offseason move, the biggest splash the Maple Leafs made, perhaps. Not listed in the NHL.com top 20 defensemen. Is that an alarming slight by any stretch?
No. And I respect the people that put these lists together for years and years and years. I was part of TV productions that always put lists together. And believe it or not, putting those lists together are amazing exercises. But you're always going to have people that are going to be doubters. And they're going to say, they don't know what they're talking about, or this list is terrible, or this guy shouldn't be on it, or that guy's too high up. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. What I would say is Darren Raddysh didn't grow his brand on people because a lot of people didn't watch Tampa play. They didn't see the power play presence. They didn't see the puck moving presence. And basically, they didn't know he was that big a name. Well, he is that big a name. And what people don't talk about enough is how much slack he picked up in Tampa last year when Victor Hedman wasn't playing. And there were good portions of the year where Victor Hedman did not play. But yet, if you look at that top 10 or top 20 defense, Victor Hedman's still on that list. That's not a slight on Victor, by the way, who's a very good friend and somebody I respect a lot. But Darren Raddysh should be in that top 20 list. There's no question in my mind.
Right, Pierre. But I mean, personally, I don't find it to be too upsetting a thing. And I'm going to revisit a conversation we had multiple times when he first came to the Leafs.
Yep.
In fairness to the list makers, last season was by far the best season he has ever had in the NHL. And I have a feeling that if he should continue that pace, slightly below, slightly above with the Toronto Maple Leafs for a season or two, he would find himself as a stalwart on those types of lists.
So well said, and I completely agree. And I just want to add some backing to what Kyle just said, and hopefully it illustrates the point even stronger. The power play was a big thing for him last year. Kucherov's a tremendous, obviously, power play player. Braden Point's a tremendous power play player. Tampa's power play has always been legitimately lethal. He had to go in because Hedman wasn't available for most of the year, and he made such a difference with that group. He made such a difference with that group. And then all of a sudden, people started to recognize, wow, this guy's big. This guy moves a puck well. This guy can really play defensively in his own zone. There's a lot to like. So I think there's so much there where I don't think enough people actually saw him play over the course of an 82-game schedule where they can say, oh, yeah, Darren Raddysh is this or Darren Raddysh is that. Darren Raddysh is a really good player. He's going to help Toronto a lot.
No, it seems inevitable, Pierre, but I mean, he's again just another spoke in the wheel of all of these offseason changes that I think are going to bring a lot of present day changes to the players already on this roster. I expect this team to look and function very differently, but we'll get into the expectations of this coming season towards the end of today's show. A player I'm fascinated of signing, I'm fascinated by Jack Roslovic. I, again, this is to the Leafs depth is what he's adding. And it's, he's making this lineup. We talked about this being a 2-line team for the longest. It's a 4-line hockey team now, Pierre. And that's the only way to win in today's NHL. Carolina just proved that, of course. But you've talked about this ad nauseum for months and months and months now, the need for this team to get deeper. Talk about his role coming up this season with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, I think his role is going to be really pronounced, number one. Number two, there's going to be a comfort level when he walks into the dressing room because of the familiarity he has with Austin Matthews.
Yes.
They're really, really tight. They've played together before in the past. They've had a lot of success together. They basically grew up together in the United States National Team Development Program. Jack's a tremendous player. I think Edmonton will miss Jack Roslovic a lot. I really do. I think they'll miss him a lot in Edmonton. I think he brings a lot to the party in Toronto. And again, the sense of familiarity, I don't think can be discounted here. Austin Matthews and he have this amazing chemistry on the ice and off the ice. I think it's only positive. And I do think you talked about it so perfectly, Kyle. The power plays matter, especially if you have depth.
Yeah.
I don't know if he cracks the first power play. I don't know if he does. But he'll be on the second power play, and he'll make a difference on the second power play.
And that's what I mean towards the depth. I mean, you get a 4-minute penalty and whatnot. That's when that PP2 line really comes into play. Or it's the fact that they could have two very, very potent combinations of players and perhaps even three that they could mix up depending on what team they're playing, just mix things up a little bit. It's super interesting, but I like this guy's profile. 29 years old. He's pretty tall. He's a good size centerman. And again, this is going to this team's rebuild. But I want to talk about this team for a second, Pierre, because I think, it's not unfair to compare the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're the NHL equivalent of the New York Yankees. There's no such thing as a complete rebuild. You can't do that in a market this large. And we talked about that in the offseason, the unlikelihood that they would tear it all down. The fan base won't stand for that. And I think there's something fair about that because of where they are positioned in this league. So they retooled. But they retooled like to a level that was almost a complete and total rebuild. It truly was. But it's like this weird hybrid they've done. And I want to talk about, or have you talk about, the expectations for this team versus the hype, because I don't think anyone is sitting at home convincing themselves that they're suddenly the best team in the National Hockey League. But if they don't make the playoffs, if they don't have a really good regular season record compared to last year, everything they've done, it's fair to call it an offseason failure.
It is. But I remember when John Chaika got hired with Matt Sundin, and I said, everybody's going to be negative about this and they're going to bash the hiring. And I said, I'm not prepared to do that. I think everybody that gets hired in the NHL deserves some runway. They deserve an opportunity to fix the mess that they're inheriting. And I think that's what they've done. I think they've done a nice job. You know, a lot of times a house will look really good on the outside, and take it from somebody that's been to Russia a lot of the housing there looks really good from the outside, and then you get inside and you're like, why did outside look so good and the inside didn't? And so I think sometimes you buy the house based on what the exterior is. Then you get in, you see the interior's not that good. You got to do some fixing.
Mhm.
And I think the Leafs saw that the outside of the house was pretty good. The inside needed some fixing. The guts of the team needed fixing.
Yeah.
And I think they've done that. And again, I know there are a lot of doom and gloomers and negative people because I think there's a lot of Leaf jealousy out there. I'm not doing that because I'm telling you right now, I think their team actually is trending the right way. Now, do they have a plethora of great young prospects? No, they don't. But in this NHL, I'm not sure you're trying to win with great young prospects. You can have one or two or three. You can't have 10 because those 10 aren't going to win for you. Ask the Chicago Blackhawks. How's that
Yeah.
going? Ask
Yeah,
Chicago.
yeah, and the transition with this team too. I mean, I would expect that the next version of changes comes to rebuilding that farm system, and
Yes.
it's the next logical move, right? Because they now have a pattern of being able to make deals at the NHL level to strengthen their roster. But I kind of agree with you, Pierre, because the turnover level in this league at this point, season to season, you don't have 4 years of development time to wait. It's always good to have those guys, but if anything, they allow for pieces for further deals to be made down the road. People often forget it's not necessarily about bringing someone up to the NHL. It's about bringing someone up to NHL level so they can potentially be dealt for guys that are already there making their mark.
One of the biggest things that teams miss right now in the NHL, and I can tell you because I work with a lot of young players, is that there's not a lot of internal development. The teams that internally develop players at the NHL level will be better than the teams that say, well, we'll just throw them down in the American League and they'll develop there. Even though they're similar, there's still a difference between an NHL player and an AHL player. Even though
There's
they're similar, there's still a difference. So if you're developing guys that really hit it in the AHL and they come up to the NHL and you see the potential for their growth and you can bring it out of them, you're doing your job. And I think Toronto's on their way to doing that. I really do. I'll give you an example. I'm heartbroken by what's gone on with the New York Rangers. And it's not because I'm a Ranger fan. The New York Rangers are an important franchise for the National Hockey League, and it's because of TV. More than anything else, it's because of TV and the size of the audience that they have
Mhm.
in New York. It's just mammoth, and people don't realize until they go there how big it is. They've been so disappointing because they've had no internal growth. Their young players haven't gotten better. Alexi Lafreniere hasn't gotten better. You know, you can look at Braden Schneider hasn't gotten better. Go look at the young guys that they were force feeding through their system. They didn't get better at the NHL level, and that's a problem for them. I think Toronto's on their way to not having that problem, which is really good, really good.
Pierre, I actually agree with you as someone that observes the NHL closely alongside you. Having those cornerstone franchises being good, just look what happened to the NBA with the New York Knicks winning that title. It's extreme. It's not just important for the city of New York. It's important for the NBA that those teams that have been around the longest and have the largest fan bases and the most passionate fan bases win at the highest level. Now the Leafs are looking to make that jump, but if you look around the original six, I'm super disappointed with the offseason work and the towards the end of last season play of the Detroit Red Wings. They
Yeah,
need to get better and they
yeah,
need to make better moves. I mean, you've got an exciting young player in Chicago, but it seems like they've stalled out a bit. Now, Montreal's been on the right path. That's great. Boston's always in the mix, and that's great as well too. But it's very important for the league that the New York Rangers are successful. It's New York City, baby. Like you need games in Madison Square Garden to matter. I've been to a Rangers game at Madison Square Garden. It feels like something, but the team was important and relevant back then,
yeah.
and they've managed themselves and played themselves into near irrelevance right now. And as you state, nothing in the offseason has done anything to change that.
I want to back you up on this. Through the month of May, I did 4 shows with you from Sweden. I lived in Sweden with my wife because I do a lot of consulting work for elite prospects over in Stockholm. And I was there, and I will never forget how excited the Swedish people were in my neighborhood when Toronto hired Matt Sundin, number one. but then Toronto won the draft lottery. Swedish people were
Yeah,
so pumped because one, they love Borje Salming, the late Borje Salming, obviously
as
a
they should.
Leaf. And secondly, Matt Sundin is beloved there, and obviously, and then you got Willie Nylander. Like, I can keep going on and on and on, but the truth of the matter is, this is Stockholm. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not. Flin Flon. It's Stockholm. People are talking about the Leafs like they're their home team, and it shows you the power of those brands that you're talking
Yes.
about. And you've got it like Zibanejad's an important player in the league. He plays for the New York Rangers. Like, if they waste another year as Zibanejad not getting to a Stanley Cup final, like, that's sad. That's really sad.
It is, Pierre. And like, look at that reach. Obviously, Sweden's a huge hockey country, but for the Leafs to take sort of root there, not only because Sundin played here, not only because Salming played here, but because Sundin's now once again involved on a directing, managing type of level. It's so important. But what I'm hearing from your conversation, Pierre, is that next year Bet Rivers needs to send me to Sweden so we can do these shows live. We can
You know
hand
what?
out Bet Rivers and Maple Leafs gear. We'll be all set. I'm just saying it right now so they feel pressured to do it.
This is the biggest pressure. There's a phenomenal foundation for the Borje Salming Foundation. And I was so blessed to have the opportunity to speak at it this year. And that's something that I think every hockey fan, I couldn't believe how many former Swedish NHLers and Swedish pros were there at the dinner. And it's a magnificent event. And it does so much for ALS in Europe. And there are a lot of Swedes that actually have it. For a small country, it's shocking how many Swedes have ALS that killed, obviously, Borje Salming. So it's just something I would love to do it with you. It would
Yeah.
be so cool. I'm blessed because I get to go there 2 or 3 times a year, and it never gets old for me. I just love it. Love going there.
Well, Pierre, I think we should close there on a nice poignant note so that the bosses feel pressured to make that happen. I'll be
Right.
talking to you later in the week, and can't wait to see what continues to develop this offseason, Pierre. It's been a fascinating one, and we're coming up on a very fascinating.
Can I throw one
26-27
point
season.
in there?
Please,
I
please.
should have built on it because I thought what you said was so prescient. Kyle, Toronto's made some moves. Montreal's about to make a move, I think. You've seen the division. Florida made moves. Tampa made moves. Detroit is floundering. You talked about it. It's an important franchise. I don't know what's going on there. I really don't. I used to be more connected to Detroit. I'm not anymore. Most of the guys I know are gone from there. But it's scary, like, to think about, what's going to happen with Dylan Larkin? What's going to happen? Who's going to replace Patrik Kane? Like, you got all these different things going on. They don't have a GM. We're almost to the end. We're almost to the end of August. Like, we're past the middle part of August. It's pretty amazing.
I believe it's pronounced Patrick Kane, Pierre. I had to circle back to my own mistake. That's exactly what I was reading about this morning, and I had it in my head. Anyways, Pierre, I'll talk to you later this week with Dan, and I will be talking to you next week. Who knows what's going to happen at this time of the year, but we are getting closer and closer to those Blades hitting the ice for the first time in the preseason. So exciting times ahead in 26, 27, Pierre.
Thanks, my friend. I look forward to Wednesday with you and Dan. Take care, Kyle.
Talk soon.